Thank you, Shruti. That's super important. Also, I wanted to mention ACLU of Indiana just put out their new revised business list of all the businesses that are concerned about SB1. They just announced that on, or they just posted it on Twitter at least, probably Facebook also, but I definitely saw it on Twitter. But also just thank you, right? So I think most of the people in this room, whether it is direct contact with your neighbors and your friends, whether it's legislatively, using your voice to amplify just how big what happened is, right? And how it will, how it, what it means for Indiana, and just like Trudy mentioned, how we're just going backwards. So thank you for everything that everyone in this room has done, even if it's just, like talking to your friends and family about it, or whether it's using your voice to amplify it in a more meaningful way. I'm like, we're all in it together, and like, honestly, I'm exhausted. I think a lot of people are just exhausted, right? And it's like, where do we pivot next? So one of the things that Mandy Yates and I are working on, so please feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are on the agenda. Also, we are working on a grant with the Now Foundation. Now Foundation's announced a grant for their chapters, a nonpartisan grant to get out the vote, right? So nothing changes unless it's at the election box. So at the ballot box. So what we're doing is we're applying for a $15,000 grant. We started meeting with some interested parties this week, nonpartisan kind of a thing. But if anyone has any ideas, right? Because we're in the idea phase. We're gonna hopefully knock it out this weekend. But the Now Foundation, I put a link to what the parameters are. Honestly, it's very broad. So Mandy and I went to a 9-hour mandatory like a Zoom training for it last weekend. And I don't really think a lot of chapters are applying for it. But one of the things that they want is just to kind of get out the feminist female vote, right? Well, that's very broad. So we're here for it, whether that means engaging with the IU community, some of the downtown, the business community. We've already started having some really great meetings with them. We're kind of looking at the precincts that don't vote in Monroe County, right? The ones with the lowest turnout. We looked at 2020. We have the breakdown of 2020 and 2022 by precinct. And it's like, how do we get those lowest turnout precincts to do that? So if anyone has any ideas, by all means, please reach out to Mandy or me. We're both, or anyone on exec, but we're kind of hammering some of the details out this weekend so we can get that out. Indiana Now PAC. So Mandy and I are also on that Indiana Now PAC. That is where Now does their endorsements. So we're a nonpartisan organization, but we do have a PAC. And right now we're putting our focus on State House. Understandably, right? So if anyone has any engagement with that, we have a meeting tomorrow. Any ideas, anything you want to kind of throw at us? We have a PAC meeting tomorrow, but we are continuing to accept endorsements for the general. Very easy form. Sometimes it's like you're going to get like a 5-page form from PACs, not ours. It's pretty self-explanatory. And we're doing it on a rolling basis. Save the date. So locally, kind of shifting gears, Cressma, the Bloomington Residents Council reached out to me. Thank you, Julie Hardesty, for kind of spearheading the Now effort for their event in summer in June. We did get out the vote, or we did voter registration with League of Women Voters. So they were very grateful for that. They're having an event on October 15th at the Boys and Girls Club. It's called Wonder Woman's Health Fair, and they're looking for donations and sponsors. So I put their treasurer's email in the chat or on the agenda. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to her, or we might have more information too. Shout out to All Options for doing so much work right now. I'm like seeing a post from them every day. Right now, they said they need diapers. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that. And then to please, a reminder to watch our Facebook page for a link to Row Action statewide. So there are a lot of amazing now groups. A shout out to Kieran, who's here from Northeast Indiana now, our newest chapter in that Fort Wayne area, but up in that Northeast Indiana area doing such good work. We have Northwest Indiana, Northeast Indiana, Indianapolis, and our state group that just kind of umbrella covers everybody else. But even if they're not a part of the Now family, but they're an important action, we would love to amplify them. So feel free to tag us, and then we'll share it on our Facebook page. So now I'm going to throw it to Mandy, who's also, in addition to helping me with all of that, is helming our Pride Fest effort.
All right, thank you. So yes, we are tabling at Pride Fest on Saturday. It starts at 2 o'clock, and tabling goes from 2 until 8. We will actually be in spot, oh my goodness, I just had it. It's D46, which is on Grant Street in front of the old Pygmalions building. So if you're there, stop by, see us. We'll have some swag. And if you're interested, you are more than welcome to help us table. I think we have pretty much everything except setup, which I do have some people who are going to help me. And then the last shift is from 6 to 8. So if you happen to have any time and you want to help us volunteer, feel free to do that. And I think that's all I have.
Yes, and we are tabling with, I think NAACP is joining us for a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, so if you're part of any organization that's nonpartisan that wants to just kind of bring their little flag out and stuff, let Mandy know and stuff. And we're happy to have some partners tabling. We did it with like Delta Sigma Theta's alumni chapter last year, right? And a couple of other organizations, and it just makes it more fun. So I mean, Pride Fest is already fun, but it's like the more the merrier at the table. So I am going to throw it to Julie with membership.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Hardesty, membership director. So if you are a current member, we do send out reminders for membership renewal. So the month that your membership renewal is coming up, I'll send you a reminder via email about that with directions on how to renew. Membership is available on a sliding scale from $10 to $40 per year. So whatever works for you, no questions asked. And I also want to give a shout out for the membership campaign that we ran for the month of July. Due to that, we were able to donate $50 to the Hoosier Abortion Fund from All Options to help Hoosiers in need of abortion care. So I want to give a special thanks to all of those new members who joined us in July as part of that campaign. If you want to sign up for new membership, we have a membership form that will take you through the steps. And I will put that right there. That is our membership form. And if you are a new member, you are also eligible for a complimentary Monroe County Now t-shirt while our supplies last. Mandy Yates is our treasurer. She has our current supply of t-shirts, and we will hook you up as best we can. So you can contact me or Mandy to inquire about a t-shirt. And you can always contact me at the membership director email address, which I will put here in the chat. So, all right, Gloria, you need a t-shirt. We will work on that. And then I also want to share finally links for the Hoosier Abortion Fund and a way to donate in general to independent abortion clinics. And those will be going into the chat here as well. So please continue to support those efforts. And that is what I have for membership.
Awesome, Mandy, I'm gonna throw it back to you for elections really quickly.
Oh no. All right. So we have our own elections coming up, and we decided on November 30th for this year. So we are actually closing our membership list on August 30th. So if you want to be able to run in this election or vote in this election, you do have to be a member by August 30th. Of course, any member, no matter when you join, you're more than welcome to join our Zoom meeting that we're going to have. And we are looking for people who are willing to volunteer for our election committee. I'm actually going to put my email in the chat. So if you want to reach out to me, I can do all that stuff. All right. Well, okay, there you go. Natalia put all the information out there. And you can look at our lovely bylaws and operating rules. So.
Listen, we're super grateful to Mandy because she's like the queen of bylaws. It's just so helpful. And then I want to throw it out, Indiana Now. So Mandy and I are also on the board for Indiana Now, and that's our state governing, that's our state umbrella. Kieran is also on it for Northeast Indiana Now. But our elections are Saturday, November 19th from 1 to 4 Eastern, and it'll be on Zoom and virtual. So if you're thinking about wanting to participate in the statewide, that would be great. And it is open to, I think it's open to all members, right? So if you're a member of Monroe County now, Mandy, you're eligible to vote in Indiana. Perfect. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. And then now we're going to transition to our guest speakers. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to throw it to Mandy to introduce everyone and read the bios. So thank you.
All right, let me get the bios out here. So welcome to our panel. We have our 4 panelists today. I'm just going to go through and read some short bios on each person. So I'm going to start with our lovely Jennifer Crossley. In 2021, Jennifer Crossley became the first Black woman to serve on the Monroe County Council. She has also served as the first Black chairwoman of the Monroe County Democratic Party. During her tenure, Jennifer focused her efforts on constantly assuring that Black and Brown voices in the community had a seat at the table. Before becoming our Legislative Action Director, she served as our membership chair and our vice president. And among her list of many accomplishments, Jennifer is a 2021 graduate of Hoosier Women Forward, a volunteer at the Shalom Center, a member of the Bloomington chapter of Moms Demand Action, the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus, the Bloomington chapter of the NAACP, and a proud member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Wow, that's a lot. All right, so Margie Rice is our next panelist. She joined Dobbs Legal Group after practicing law solely in Southern Indiana for 25 years. She prides herself on providing solid legal advice and counseling her clients about what they need to know as it relates to local government, regulatory, and compliance issues. Margie has worked as a deputy prosecuting attorney in Lawrence County and has represented Monroe County government and the city of Bloomington for a combined 20 years. She has served on the board of directors in the Indiana Municipal Lawyers Association, as well as serving as president from 2013 to 2014. Margie has been a member of the Hoosier Hills Food Bank Board of Directors since 2007. She's also served on the boards for the Monroe County YMCA, yay, go Y, Options for Better Living, now called Life Designs. And she is a graduate of the Governor's Council on People with Disabilities Partnership and Policy Making Program, which is an advisory committee member on the Monroe County Voices for Health Project, and has served as an adjunct instructor at the O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs at IU. Next, we have Sue Sgambelluri. Sue was elected to the Bloomington City Council in 2019, representing District 2. She's worked at IU since '92 and has called Bloomington home since 1994. In those 20 plus years, she has served the most vulnerable in our community through leadership and advisory roles with Habitat for Humanity, South Central Indiana Housing Opportunities, the CDBG Block Grants Citizen Advisory Committee, Jack Hopkins Social Service Funding Committee, and other organizations. Sue believes economic vitality is critical for social well-being, and she has served on the City of Bloomington Redevelopment Commission during a particularly exciting time in our history. Together with many Bloomington leaders, she's worked directly on economic development and the creation of a vibrant, sustainable economy in Bloomington with projects like the Trades District, Switchyard Park, repurposing of the hospital site, and affordable housing. And last but not least, we have Kate Wiltz, who was elected to the Monroe County Council, representing also District 2, or a District 2, in 2018, and also serves as the 2022 president of the council. She's a research associate at the Epley Institute for Parks and Public Lands, a unit of the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community at IU. Kate designs and develops professional training and visitor education on the variety of topics, including wilderness management, resource protection and stewardship, instruction and group facilitation, and most recently, accessibility in recreational settings. She's passionate about elevating voices of marginalized communities across all aspects of quality of life and place. She believes that this is best done by meeting people where they are and providing them the support necessary to realize their vision for personal and community wellness. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll toss it.
Yes, thank you all for joining us. I'm like, woo, that's a lot. And thank you for all that you do for our community. So I'll go ahead and start. So criminal justice reform and policing are important community topics now more than ever. For the past couple of years, Monroe County leaders wanted community input on how to reform the local criminal justice system as they struggle with an increasing jail population. And starting next week, budget advance hearings will come before City Council, including Bloomington's public safety budgets starting next Monday. Before we jump into questions to all of our panelists, please feel free to share anything with the audience, anything that you want to share before we begin. If not, we can just jump into questions. Good? Okay, cool. The first question is for our county panelists. Can you tell us about the past couple months regarding the talks about reimagining the new jail? Who is spearheading that effort? And what are some of the voices at the table? Maybe we start off with Margie. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that. So the elected officials are the ones spearheading this because they're the ones who are going to have to, ultimately vote and make the decisions to make it happen. We've recently changed the name. I'd like to report. So it's not the Criminal Justice Response Committee anymore. It's the Community Justice, we changed it from Criminal Justice to Community Justice to point out that it's not just about justice, isn't about criminal issues necessarily. It's also about things like what happens in civil court and evictions and small claims. And so that name got changed, the focus got a little broadened, and the elected officials at the county have really committed to digging in and doing the work that they're going to have to do. And we hope to soon add other voices to the table too. And I don't know, I'll hand that off to Jennifer and Kate to talk about that piece if they'd like, or.
Sure. I'll just say that both Jennifer and I have been pretty vocal at this response committee, advocating for expanding the voices at the table. So you asked, who are they, or what are some of the voices right now? Well, it started and it was just county commissioners and county council. And I left town for a minute, and when I came back, it had expanded, which is great. And now we have 14 members. They're members from, Erica Oliphant, who's here, is included as well. So we've got the prosecutor, the public defender. We've got members from our board of judges from a few different courts. The jail commander on the official list, as well as the sheriff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the health department director.
And the health department director, which I think is a really important voice to be including. However, it's all county government folks. And the city is the obvious missing voice at that table. So like I said, Jennifer and I have both been pretty insistent that that be changed, and hoping that that will happen very soon.
Yeah, and I, as the coordinator and putting together the agendas, I work with the chair of the commission, who is one of our commissioners, and I'm putting the agenda together, and I intend to put that conversation on the agenda to really force the conversation in public about should there be somebody at the city who's at the table or not, and the membership can weigh in on that. Ultimately, this is just an advisory commission, so they're going to make a recommendation, and the group that would have to change that ordinance to allow for other seats at the table are the commissioners. So, but I think that this group should definitely weigh in. Jennifer, you want to weigh in on that?
I was going to say Margie and Kate have also basically said a lot of the things, and I know I've been, as Kate had also said, we've been very vocal about bringing the city to the table, because you can't say community and miss one of the big missing components of the community, and exclude, the city for whatever reason. And so I know that it's no surprise with me and my big mouth that I'll continue to keep pushing and keep saying what is obvious and what needs to happen. At our past work session meeting that just happened this past week, Tuesday to be exact, I just feel like it's been a long week, so trying to figure out which day it is. But I also made public comment towards the end of our meeting and said, we need to have the city be a part of this. Both the jail and our facility is both used by county and city government, and we cannot exclude, and we need to make sure that they are at the table. So, if anybody else out here wants to help advocate for that, we more than happy to have that, but it's very necessary for the city to be a part of this.
Why don't I get Sue's thoughts on that, since you're here, and then also what that advocacy would look like. So a little bit like we were just talking about paid leave before the meeting kind of officially started, but like what would that mean, like going to commissioner meetings or going to these meetings? And is there room for public comment in the task force meeting that you're talking about?
There were a lot of questions bundled in with what you just said. So I'll just dive in, and I need you to help me if I forget or accidentally omit anyone. I cannot say anything further without first applauding Jennifer and Kate. Thank you for what you're doing. Community to me seems to imply it would be the equivalent of having just township governments talk about poor relief, for example. So these two are not just county leaders, they are community leaders in the truest sense of the word. So bravo to both of you. I wholeheartedly support the city's role in that, in the community justice group. For any number of reasons. There are very practical reasons. First of all, the site that is slated to potentially host the new jail, and that facility, whatever that facility is within the city limits. And that makes sense in a lot of ways, because we want something that is on a transit route that has access to services and so forth. But it's going to need to be rezoned if it's going to be used for that purpose. So that is eventually going to come to city council. And most of us on city council know a little something about zoning. So I think we can be a helpful part of that conversation. So beyond that, I think one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the area is the Bloomington Police Department, just like the Sheriff's Department, that obviously plays a role in the community justice system. And so it seems very important to me that that be represented well. The meetings are not, Natalia, you asked, well, is there room for public comment and how does that work? The meetings are not ours to run. We recognize very much that community justice and criminal justice are the purview of the county. and the areas. So I, speaking for myself, I happily defer to the leadership of that group to decide whether or not to invite public comment. I hope they do. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kate and Jennifer, is that the subgroups that are going to be forming, kind of the subcommittees that are going to be forming, will be a mechanism for gathering community feedback. And I don't know enough about how that'll actually happen. It might not have been decided yet, but I'll defer to the two of you to talk about that.
Honestly, I think Margie probably could articulate that pretty well, because that was a topic at our last meeting and she facilitated.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, I'm gonna add to the agenda a specific public comment time at the bottom of the meeting at the end, so that after the conversation, people can weigh in about what they've heard. That's not been on the agenda because it's been typically to date, and I've just been meeting with this group since mid-May when I was hired as a facilitator, but it was designed to be more of a work session for the elected officials to get in there, roll up their sleeves and start talking about how to implement the studies. But we have found, and I think this is a good thing, that members of the public are super interested in this topic and are showing up. They're showing up, sitting at the table, participating. And I've heard some feedback from the elected officials that say, hey, we only have an hour and a half here. And so it's got to be more structured so that we hear from the elected officials doing their work. And then, if we're going to have public comments, let's have a specific time for that on the schedule, because there's a lot to pack in an hour and a half. I do think that to your point about the specific subcommittees that are going to be created, that's where a lot of the real work is going to be done. And I think that's when we pull in a lot of expertise from the community to work on some of those subcommittees and go out there and gather input, because every step of the way, we're going to have to get public involvement and community involvement. And because this project it shouldn't be built just by the county with their ideas. It should be a whole big community vision. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I guess and I forget if it was Jennifer or Kate, how do we most practically lobby if community members feel like the city voice needs to be at the table? Then how can we best advocate to the commissioners? Is that in their work session or is that at one of these meetings? Yeah, whoever's good.
I would go to the commissioner to the meetings, the commissioners meetings, and in public comment mention that. And we can get on, I've got some thoughts about this when you talk about constituent engagement, but I think the more you say it and the more often you go to the meetings and say it, I think the better. So just send emails, show up at meetings, just let them know that you as a constituency expect collaboration. That's one of your, expectations, that leaders will collaborate.
No, and that's we can make it an action.
And I mean, we hear all the time from a lot of other things. Like, for example, in public comment, we recently at some of the most recent commissioner meetings, folks were going to the commissioners to talk to them about the expansion of the convention center. Like, we can't do any of this alone without people and the input of people. And whether we agree or not agree, everybody should feel as though that their voice is being heard. I've been answering emails and fell asleep at my computer last night from people who are, questioning, this very idea of what it means, like for us to have a new facility. So I'm literally taking the time to do this, and others should be able to listen to others. So yeah, I mean, Margie is absolutely correct. Also come to our meetings and make public comment as well. But I do think that the biggest way about going about that, because we've already decided the persons that are responsible for that are the commissioners. And again, it's not a shade or a diss or a slight at them. It's getting people involved and letting them know, as government leaders, this is what we're asking you for. You've asked us to elect you. Now we're asking you to listen to us.
Absolutely.
And I think Margie's words were very powerful. Tell them that you expect collaboration. Those are very powerful words. So
Absolutely,
Well,
I agree.
And if I want to piggyback just on that idea that, that Sue just emphasized, when I liked, and I'm sure that this may not come across in the way that I mean it always, it may sound like I'm being sassy, but one of the things like I love to remind people about as a government lawyer, I've done this, decades, is the beginning of the open door law that says, so the purpose of the Indiana open door law says this, it says that this state and its political subdivisions, which include the county and include the city, exist only to aid in the conduct of the business of the people of this state. So they exist only to aid in the conduct of the business of the people. So whose business is it? The people's business. And why do these elected officials and political subdivisions exist? To aid you in doing their work. It's not to do it alone. It's aid the public in doing it. That's what a democracy is about. And we've got to somehow flip the script so that we empower our constituents to say, hey, you're doing the work that I want, and we need to collaborate. Again, it's not like hostility towards government. It's how do we collaborate and work together? Because this is all the work that we need to do.
Can I put in just 2 cents, or actually maybe 5? I live in Fort Wayne and in Allen County, and we're going through this right now. We had during COVID, we have a small jail, not really that small, but a jail that's going through this absolutely right this minute. And we had a federal case that actually had a court hearing today, and it's been postponed now for 90 days. A individual who was in the jail filed a federal suit because it was overcrowded, and it's been in the court system. And as of today, now they have an additional 90 days. There's millions and millions of dollars that have been put aside for a new jail. Our current jail is downtown right on the river, and that's prime real estate, and they want to move it. Not only does the county want to move it, but our city wants it moved. And we have an area in our town called the Southeast Side, which is primarily brown and black. And we do not want that moved there because it is now growing. And nobody in the Southeast side of town wants it moved there, no one. But that's a prime area where anybody who's white or anybody who has money does not want it in their area. Of course, nobody wants it there if you have money or if you have great schools. So they're all saying, let's put it in the Southeast side, and we are fighting it like mad dogs, saying, no, do not put it in that side. So as of today, the judge has said you have 90 days now. It's a federal case. It is not just a city or county. It is a federal case. And the judge says you have to have the city and county. You have to work together. This is a community and you all have to work together. There's an organization called, I'm trying to make sure I'm saying this right. Something but not handcuffs. Help but not handcuffs, I believe. I may be saying that wrong, but they're now is involved in it. Our organization has been to these meetings saying this is not going to work. So I agree with everything. It is a community. You all have to work together, get down there, protest, whatever you have to do, but make sure it is an organization that everybody is involved with, that you all have something to say about it, because that's the only way it's going to be done. You have to speak out. And I have to leave, sadly, because I'm taking care of my granddaughter in her parents are in Hawaii and they're going to call pretty soon. And so thank you all. This has been very enlightening. And all I can say is, all work together. This is a great action.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work in Northeast Indiana.
Yeah, we're going to keep up. We're very, very excited. We've only been doing this since the 6th of July, but we're growing every day. So it's been exciting and we're going to continue to do it. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you for what you do. And just to put a final pin on that, Margie, I'll just go back. If we wanted to do an action, would we need to be specific to say just this, like the city administration? Because sometimes I do feel like city council gets left off. So do we need to be specific to be like, we would like to see city council and administration members? Oh, sorry, I had to go wave. I see someone. Okay, I'm sorry.
I think Sue had her hand up first.
Yeah,
Kate?
whoever wants to reply to that.
Yeah, I would just encourage on Planet Sue, the ideal planet, which doesn't really exist. I think it would be especially helpful to have a member of the administrative branch of government and the legislative branch of government, because both of them have a role to play, particularly in moving resources around that will help pay for some elements of the community justice system and response. So I would, for what it's worth, I would advocate for that. But I think, again, any representation of the city is critical. So.
Right. And I would just say that on Planet Kate, if that's what we're doing here, because it's pretty cool there. I would say that also I would welcome an appointment of the chief of police or a designate, because I think that perspective needs to be shared. And I personally know I would benefit from understanding that perspective. So right there, I've got 3 different people, you know, slots that I would welcome. I will take what I can get, but yeah, I would open up 3 in, you know, on Planet Kate. I did want to make sure that everyone knew that the lawsuit that Kieran was just describing is the situation under which we are operating, and probably most everyone here is involved enough to kind of understand that, but we are acting in response to that exact kind of federal lawsuit, and Margie can speak to this much more eloquently than I can.
There was a federal lawsuit filed. There was a lawsuit filed years ago, I mean, like decades ago, against Monroe County. And the ACLU filed against Monroe County when our jail was younger than it is now, but in worse shape in terms of how people were being, you know, treated, where they were sleeping. Much has been done to remedy some of the issues that were existing at that time. And the county attorney that handled the litigation at that time has, you know, since passed. He's no longer alive, and some of the memories about that are fading. But the reality is that the ACLU felt at that time that we needed a new jail because ours is, they say, the worst designed in the state. And if you've ever been in it, I think you'll recognize that it is no place you would want your child to go if your child was incarcerated. And so I know people say, hey, we don't need a new correctional center. Well, the fact is we have to have one in our county, and their Department of Corrections will tell you like what sorts of security it has to have, and they will even weigh in on the size of it. So not having one is not an option, but if we have to have one, we sure as heck can have one that looks better and runs better and is, a little bit more hopeful than the one that we have. We, of course, though, are having a lot of conversation about what should we do instead of incarcerating and before incarcerating and after. How do we get people, how do we work ourselves out of as much business in terms of correctional center business as possible, and maybe work our way into some more healthcare, work with our health department and get, talk about this from a health perspective, not a criminal perspective. So I think everybody's got to get at the table and share your vision, because we need it. We need your input.
No, thank you. That's a really, really good point. So I'm going to blend a couple. So we had a couple questions before, so I'm going to kind of blend them into budget week, right? So I'm going to throw this to Sue first. So the City of Bloomington Board of Public Safety recently brought the potential of a taser pilot for the Bloomington Police Department. This may be included in the budget next week. How would you envision our community should best discuss these important issues? And then I'll throw this final question. It's like, what are some of your priorities during the budget cycle regarding public safety also? So I'm going to just kind of meld those two. And then for Kate and Jennifer, I'll ask about what your priorities are during the budget cycle regarding public safety when it comes to the county too.
Sure. Okay. And let me jump in and actually share some context first too. As most people know, we passed earlier this year, we passed an economic development local income tax, or EDI. DLIT, a local income tax increase. And a good chunk of that, by no means most of it, is actually focused on public safety, and it's actually focused on addressing several issues within that. Okay, not the least of which is compensation for sworn officers and for non-sworn officers, and I'll talk about that in a second. One of the things Natalia, I think, spoken about in some advanced materials is the fact that we are so very understaffed. We are 22 officers down from what I still think is a suboptimal level of sworn officers. I've lost count of the number of times I've had constituents reach out to me and say, you know, I'm really having trouble with noise with a neighbor. I'm really having trouble with some kind of nonviolent neighbor issue. And realistically, our police officers don't have the bandwidth to do those kinds of things when they have to respond to violent crime. More to the point, though, and I think more to my dismay, very often our police officers don't have the bandwidth to do community policing, which is something we really want to emphasize. We want police to be proactive and in community, knowing a community, not just responding to a particular incident, but actually being a part of a community and being known as resources. So I think the big investment that we've made in public safety has been in an increase in salaries for sworn officers. We are, I think, oh gosh, what, the 7th largest city in the state of Indiana. Our salaries ranked 63rd. Okay. Surprise, surprise, retention is a major issue. And like anything, when you have a large staff, you have to plan over time. So you don't have everybody getting ready to retire or everybody being new. You have to be very intentional about that pipeline of staff. And it's very hard to do that when our salaries simply don't keep up and when we lose officers. So a good chunk of that budget will be focused on investments in sworn officers and non-sworn officers. So our community resource specialists who can respond and to situations that don't necessarily require a sworn officer who's trained in the use of a weapon. Community outreach officers will very typically respond to issues involving those experiencing homelessness, who need help or who need a referral to something, or to neighbor disputes. One of the ways I think about public safety is what tools do we have in our toolkit and how are we investing in those tools? So sworn officers are obviously a very important tool, but they're just one. So I also think in terms of investing in our non-sworn officers, our community resource officers, and in the tools they have. Natalia, you asked specifically about tasers. For myself, I am inclined to think it is always worth looking at non-lethal options. I think there are communities in this country that don't prioritize non-lethal and don't particularly worry about having tasers or beanbag guns. I would like to think Bloomington is better than that. So I am open to that. We haven't seen a proposal yet for that. The budget books are actually more than you wanted to know about city budget. Budget books are due to be uploaded to the government website tonight by midnight. And so so all of our controllers and everything are all huddled in their offices right now. And so we will see our first print copy of budget tomorrow. So we haven't seen it yet. The public safety budget in particular is going to be discussed Tuesday night. That meeting starts at 6. Public safety is, I think, 3rd on the list. So figure we'll get to that about 7:30 or 8-ish, maybe. So I would offer that. Does that provide some context for what's happening and what kind of questions we're working on?
Will it be discussed tomorrow? Do you have a work session tomorrow and Friday where you'll do a preliminary or no?
Yes and no. Yes, we have a work session, but the work session will focus on particular pieces of legislation that are coming up. So there's a rezone in there, I think. I actually printed.
But not the budget.
Not the budget, no. We've had some budget advances already where we've had some preliminary discussions, but just between us and whatever microphone I'm speaking into. For me, being a council member and being very involved in the discussions on the economic development lit, we have council members who came to the table with very different priorities. And what is the phrase? It's like a divorce. It's not over till everyone's unhappy, you know, okay? So I don't think I would necessarily go that far. But there was a lot of negotiating that went into that, and a lot of back and forth and a lot of give and take. That was itself, I think, very informative and has kind of helped me crystallize some of my thinking around budget. So in a way, just everything we did and all the meetings we had around the ED Lit, I think will kind of inform the tone and the conversation when we go into budget.
No, that's great. That's super helpful, at least for me. And I'll just throw it to Kate and Jennifer, if you have any priorities when your budget week starts and what you're looking for in public safety.
Jennifer, you want to go first this time?
I'm like, I thought I was talking. So I think for me, in terms of public safety, so I'm also the liaison for the jail on the county. And right now, just as Sue was saying with BPD, it's also no surprise that our jail staff are very short-staffed and they are worked beyond means. They are tired. You know, they work like 12-hour shifts. Sometimes if people call in, they are the ones that have to go back in. And from a public safety standpoint, if you do not have, you know, folks that are working, then that is an issue, but that is also a grave concern. But also we have to think about how we can retain people, you know, with surrounding counties. We went to Hamilton County yesterday and we listened to, as we went to the Hamilton County Jail Facility, and they also were talking about how they are short-staffed, but they also have a very competitive incentive for their folks that work there. And so my goal is to also try to work with our jail staff right now and trying to get them a meeting so that they can actually so we can approve the funding. Again, county SAT, we are the financial body. We do not do the contracts, but we can approve funding for those contracts. And as of now, I know recently the collective bargaining unit had came to our county council earlier this year about it, and to no avail. That to the date, that was also another email that I was answering into the wee hours of morning last night, or this morning, is they've not heard from folks that are the makeup, that have the design to help change the contract so that we can implement those things. And so I'm trying to, you know, work with the powers that be so that we can get them, you know, get them the pay so we can retain, so we don't continue to bleed out, so to speak. So I think that would be like a big concern for me is, you know, the pay equity of people. And that's also around the county, but in particular public safety. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I would just, I think Jennifer sums that up pretty nicely. We are in the throes of really trying to understand what is specific to our jail and sheriff's departments issues with retention and recruitment, and what is part of the bigger economic situation that's going on, because as we, you know, I'm sure you know, it's all around us. Our, you know, businesses are having a hard time with that, and there's a lot of shifting among employees and professionals. So it's a conundrum. It really is, because as Jennifer points out, the basics that you need are to have enough and satisfied, wanting to be there employees, and especially in public safety, that's something we can't skimp on. And so it's really, it's a difficult thing. Now it is, Jennifer referred to the collective bargaining unit. They're in mid-contract right now, so that's a a sticky point because the contract would have to be reopened, and it's not in a cycle right now where that would naturally be negotiated. So this is sort of a side conversation to our typical budget conversations.
No, that makes sense. When does your week start?
Right after Labor Day, and we'll do 2 meetings that week, Labor Day week, and then we'll have 3 the following week. We're kind of spreading it out. Staff actually requested that we spread it just a little bit because it gives them a time to take what we've talked about and done in the hearing and can record it and get it set before we jump into the next meeting. So just
Yeah,
gonna
I know
have
that.
budget bump at some point.
No, that's super helpful. Well, because we're like almost at the end of time, does anyone have any questions from the audience? Because, you know, you've already spent an hour with us and we're so grateful for your time. It doesn't look like, it doesn't look like I see any hands up. So I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for giving your time today. And I feel like I know what our next action is, you know, right off the bat, you know, that we can talk about with MC Now, about advocating for. And then Jennifer has her hands raised. Jennifer, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think, and going to the Hamilton County jail yesterday, it was a very eye-opening experience. And for those who have not gone to our local county jail to do a tour, it is something that is welcome. I have a little bit of a mixed feeling about, you know, folks just coming in and taking tours, because it almost just kind of feels like a circus. And those folks there are not a circus by any means. Like, they deserve the dignity and respect. But when we talk about a new facility, we really need to, you know, look at the ebbs and flows of what that actually truly means. And I will be open and honest. And I had this conversation with our commander back in March when I took the first tour. Initially going in, it was like a heck no, we don't need another jail, because I think we're just going to have it bigger and all of those things, until I was able to go in and see for myself the bits and pieces that are literally falling apart, the floods that go from the top of the jail to the bottom, into some of the courts. Also, we have this thing called innocent until proven guilty. And so while people are safe, they need to make sure that they are being treated with respect. We also have people that are there for non-violent offenses, such as, you know, being served a warrant for whatever, like if you miss a court date, like any of those types of things. So we have to truly think about that. And we always hear so many different times how Monroe County and Bloomington are so progressive, and we are to no avail, like the beacon of a red state of Indiana. Well, I call BS to that just a little bit, because if we are truly where we say we are, this is our opportunity for a new facility, because this facility will be in place for years to come. We have to truly reimagine what it is like to actually jail somebody. And that means funding social services programs, having a permanent low barrier shelter where people can go, because 75, I think I saw in the Herald Times, 75 to 80% of inmates that are there have mental health and substance use issues. By the time they already get into the facility, it is too late. And the psychological effects of people being in that particular space. I come from a place where I have a family member that is doing hard time, and went to jail in their 20s, and well into their 30s is still there. I also come from a place where I want to see justice for what happened to my brother, who was shot and killed in Chicago nearly 20 years ago, and we've never seen any type of light of day of anything like that. So I think we have to think about restorative justice. I think we have to think about programs. I think we also, as it's been said many, many different times, we have to have community input, because there are things that were discussed yesterday that gives me pause things. And I really want to hear from people, whether it's on an agreeable level or not agreeable level, those that want a jail to happen, or those that absolutely cannot see a new facility happen. So I really think that this is a golden opportunity for our community to sit here and work together and make sure that everybody is involved and engaged in something that truly affects all of us, because we're all paying for it as taxpayers that here, we're all paying for it. So we damn sure better hear from everybody and listen to everybody too.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to end the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your time today. Our guests, our panelists, thank you so much. And just keep watch on our Facebook page for any events that we're happy to amplify also to our elected leaders. If there's anything we need to amplify, please let us know. We're always happy to do that and to hear about what should be on our radar. So thank you, everyone. Please have a great night.
Thank you. It's great being here. Thanks so much for inviting us.
having us.
See ya.
Thank you.